Good morning, Owen. How are you?
How are you doing? I'm very well, Joanne. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Good morning to all those that are joining us this morning and watching in. My name is Joanne Callan. I am a holistic therapist and wellbeing coach and the host of the 11:11 show with Joanne. And I'm joined this morning by Owen Burns, the breathingcoach.ie. And Owen and I met last year through a program that we were both working on. And one, I have to say that I am very grateful to Jim for that introduction, because health and well-being of clients and my family members based on a lot of the information that Owen shared with us. So I'm delighted to be able to bring some of that information to the Destination Uri viewers this morning. And I think now is it's a really important time for us to share some of this information. So I really appreciate your time and your support this morning, Owen, to get that message out there. So and it's delighted, it's great, of course, to connect again. So thanks a million. How is life in the Southwest?
It's very good, thanks, Joanne. We've had a serious run of very nice weather, so that's actually made the restrictions an awful lot easier to bear, because we live in a rural enough setting, so it's outside in the back garden, and we live by the sea, so that's actually great, so it's great to be able to enjoy the outside and the outdoors in fine weather, so the bad weather is harder to take.
Super, and I know I see a few comments coming in here saying good morning to us. So any of our viewers watching in, if you want to hit the share button, that will be excellent, because that will get the message out there to a few more people. And any questions or comments, please pop them in and I'll get a chance to review them and go through them with Owen as we chat. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself and kind of your background and why you do what you do.
Great, yeah. Well, I'm Owen. I teach people how to breathe. I have done that for the last 12 or 13 years on a part-time basis. Why do I teach people how to breathe? Well, I've seen how much of a benefit I get myself from it. So I'm a lifelong asthmatic, and from 6 months of age, I would have had struggles with my breathing, which is particularly relevant at the moment, actually. Well, not that I have it anymore, but breathing is particularly relevant in relation to our overall health. But I learned to breathe in 2003, and that was a real revelation to me, because I thought I knew how to breathe already, because I'd been there breathing away for so long, but it had always been a struggle. And actually, when I first learned, I was very skeptical that it may be of any benefit at all, because it was quite contrary to what I would have learned all the time. So I now, instead of having a blocked nose and permanently breathing through my mouth, I now permanently breathe through my nose, and that is a huge help in itself in terms of filtration. But then it's actually really good to breathe less and less. So I breathe as little as I can, and it has a huge effect on your fitness, but also your sleep and your recovery, and that makes a big difference.
Yeah, I guess some of those words, as you mentioned, will sound quite strange to people, because it's contrary to what we're often taught, and even in the wellness field, the mindfulness field, meditation field, and yoga and different practices, we often hear about taking a deep breath. And I know you kind of changed my kind of thinking around that, and this idea of breathing less may be a little confusing for people, because obviously we need to breathe all the time. So can you elaborate a little bit and give us an explanation as to what you mean by those terms?
Okay, well, actually, in terms of directness, like I have a little finger pulsimeter here. Okay, so back over to the camera, and that just tells you, will it be up the right way, or probably back to front, I presume. No, that looks up. That looks right to me there. So that top figure, the 98%, right? 97, 98 is how much oxygen is in my blood when it reaches the tip of my finger. Okay, so what happens there is we have oxygen in the air all around us, 21% in and around. I'm breathing it in through my nose or my mouth, but breathing it in goes down into my lungs, goes from my lungs into my blood to my heart back down to my finger, and it has 97, 98% oxygenation there. So if I take more breaths I'm only trying to achieve a 2% gain, but that 2% at most, we can't be super saturated with oxygen. So at most we can have 100%, but actually 100% is probably actually suboptimal. Actually, you probably don't want to have 100%. But anything above 95% is considered fully oxygenated. So I'm fully oxygenated, breathing almost nothing. So if you breathe more, what happens? Your oxygenation rate actually in your blood stays the same. It may go up a little, maybe go up 97, 98, 99, but it doesn't get delivered. So the oxygen stays in your blood and passes around a bit like a heating system. So the oxygen comes into your blood in the lungs, it passes to your heart and then around your body. And then if it's staying in your blood, it comes back and it hasn't been depleted of oxygen. So you're not working very efficiently. So where you breathe less, you get more oxygen delivered. So you actually, that's part of the sports performance benefit, is where you're getting oxygen delivered when you're breathing. So you can have a slower heart rate, a slower breathing rate when you're exercising. And that makes all the difference in terms of delivery of oxygen. So even though you're breathing less, you're actually delivering more oxygen. So you can actually feel composed, relaxed, and in the zone, rather than stressed and overwhelmed and really tired and your muscles being sore towards the end of, let's say, for a match or a race, as an example. It's kind of a hard thing to understand because, for years, I spent more than 10 years trying to breathe more in the unfortunately failed hope to actually help my asthma. But then when I learned to breathe less, very quickly it had a profound effect on me.
And it's, as I say, sometimes this can, when we go into numbers and go into those types of things, it can sound a bit out there for people. But whenever you're talking there about feeling more calm and more relaxed, because I know one of the areas that we've talked about in the past is how we can use these tools for awareness of breath and nasal breathing for anxiety, for example. And I think it's important for us to look at anxiety in a holistic picture. So obviously there's the emotional elements of anxiety, there's the mind elements of anxiety, but there's also the physiological elements of anxiety and the physical anxiety that can be caused in the body. And breathing plays such a huge role in that piece as well. So I think right now in the area that we're in and what we're experiencing at the moment, so we have a lot of heightened anxiety. A lot of us are in our in our fight flight amygdala kind of space. And can you maybe touch in a little bit on that for us, Owen?
I can. I'm trying to see if I can dig out a way to share my screen there. I think I can do that there. Share screen is easiest with two monitors. Okay, so share screen. Can I share this one? Is that possible to share that screen, Joanne, or do you know how to do? Yeah. Okay.
I think Cal control.
That's just perfect. So this is from a scan that somebody is taking. So the normal breathing, right? So somebody's in a CAT scanner, and they're just breathing away. And the brighter the area, the brighter the picture here, the greater the electrical activity in the brain. So somebody's just sat in there. It's quite a challenging space, actually, a CAT scan.
Yeah.
Your upper body, because it feels like sliding into a coffin, actually, and you're in a very restricted place. And funnily enough, if there's any underlying anxiety, people get panic attacks in here, and their scan doesn't work very well because they're moving. So it's really, really still. So if you're facing a CAT scan, breathing work is really, really good for actually being able to not have this overwhelm come. So the scan on the other side, the one with hyperventilation, that's just after it's the same person a minute later with the second scan. So the first time they're breathing normally and gently, the second time they're deep breathing or forced ventilation, so through their mouth. So they've spent a minute going, and you can see the effect it has on their brain. So their brain has sort of switched off. So how does that happen physiologically? Your carotid arteries, so it's fight, flight, or freeze. So your carotid arteries, which supply your blood to your brain, they actually squeeze and restrict, and they reduce in diameter by half, and that reduces blood flow by 3/4 to your brain, and the lights go out. So we actually get into quite a distressed state where we don't really, know what our favorite color is, or whether we like tea or coffee, or whether we want tea or coffee even. And that's if so. we are in more like the hyperventilation state at the moment, globally, actually. It's not just a national thing anymore. And what it is, if you put the hyperventilation the dark one on one side of the room, and the normal breathing on the other side of the room, we're trying to move towards the normal breathing version. So how you do that is you reverse what way you're breathing. So your breathing is like being stuck in first gear. So we all know how to drive, or most of us do anyway. And what we have there is if you're in first gear the whole time and you want to go faster and you keep pressing down on the accelerator, you will go faster up to a point, at which point the engine will start to get very loud and noisy, and over time will break. It'll get into this. So your breathing is like that. So it's a magnifier of what's going on in your body. So it doesn't really matter what the source or initial trauma that you're dealing with. Your breathing and you can have a physiological change, and what happens then is your breathing amplifies your emotions. So where you were previously feeling a little bit anxious, you may feel a lot anxious at the moment, and your breathing is a great way to reverse it. And by reversing it, you're moving from the hyperventilation state, where you're sort of in shutdown mode and your brain is in shutdown mode, over towards normal breathing, where you're more relaxed, calmer, and you can just deal with what life is firing at you. Is that okay? An explanation there?
Yeah, that's fabulous. Thanks, Owen. And I guess that is it. It's not what happens to us; it's how we manage and deal with what happens to us, and how we support our body physically, emotionally, and I guess energetically to navigate the challenges that we may be experiencing. And I often will say to clients that the two of the most powerful things that we have at our disposal all day, every day, are our breath and words, our language and our breath. And when we learn how to utilize them and optimize those to our greatest advantage, then we have a lot more control in our lives and in our world. So I guess knowing and doing can often be two different things, and we're talking about nasal breathing, but we may have an audience here of mouth breathers, or indeed snorers, or people who suffering with asthma, suffering with hay fever, and a variety of different things. And I know you have a few simple techniques that can greatly improve, that any of us can implement. And just to say to viewers, I've used these myself. I've used them with people of all ages, in terms of recommending some of the techniques that Owen uses, right from kind of 7-8-year-olds right up to 60-70-year-olds who have had lifetimes of sinus issues and different snoring issues and things like that, and they've noticed real remarkable improvement. So can you share with us a few of those techniques, Owen?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Just flashed up there that my mic was muted, so I was staying quiet. Yeah, sorry, you were saying, oh yeah, some of the techniques, how to unblock your nose. It's a great exercise, So I did this in 2003. My nose hasn't blocked since. So and that's going from a completely blocked nose that I rarely breathed to, through. I had a few sports injuries, and for a period of time after getting a thump on the nose, I'd have been able to breathe through my nose, but then it would just block itself up again. So my nose
never the way you want to gain. Never the way you want to gain the ability to breathe through your nose with a few knocks and sports injuries.
Oh yeah, but so it was just blocked all the time. So I don't recommend getting thumped on the nose as a way of clearing it.
We'll avoid that one.
Yeah. So you can do it a gentler way. So you're going to be holding your breath and pinching your nose, and obviously after you've been at your nose, you wash your hands. That's at all times, really. Not maybe more particularly acute at the moment, but really after being at your nose, we should be washing our hands anyway. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to actually establish nasal breathing. So you're going to be breathing in, out, and holding your breath, and I'll demonstrate it now in a second. And then you're nodding your head with your holding your breath. I'm talking here, but you'll have your mouth closed, and you're holding your breath while rocking your head up and down, and you hold for as long as you can. And then when you're ready to breathe in, you breathe into your nose. And what happens there is some of the stuff that's in here goes back down your throat, where you can actually swallow it, and your stomach deals with that, and it just clears your airway. So you're sending a an emergency signal gets sent to your nose that your airway is blocked or impeded and it needs to unclear it. So we just hold on for as long as you can. But you should notice, you should feel inside here that your nose feels a little bit clearer so that it's easier to breathe through your nose. So where your nose is all stuffy, when you suffer with sinus or hay fever and it's all stuffy, or just, you know, there could be a whole load of reasons why your nose is blocked. But what we're trying to do is establish a way to actually for you to breathe through it. So I've dealt with people who have a completely sort of smashed up nose, you know, deviated septum, nose turned at nearly at right angles, and I haven't found a nose yet that I can't get some air into somebody. It is quite kind of uncomfortable, you know, for when you're really blocked or if you've got very heavy polyps. So what way do you do it? Okay, so we're going to start now. So we're going to get you to take a gentle breath into, and you might actually be my example.
Demo. It could look like fun.
So
okay, let's go for that.
Yeah, you take a gentle breath into your nose, a gentle breath out your nose, pinch your nose, and you nod your head up and down. And you hold for as long as you can. And when you need to, you let go of your nose and breathe in. You might feel a little bit lightheaded when you do this, actually, you know, so I can feel that there myself.
Or look a little bit stupid. I generally don't recommend doing it live on camera. It's probably one that you do by yourself.
Yeah, I'm used to doing it, so it doesn't bother me.
Willing participant here, I have to say.
Did you notice any difference there, Joanne?
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, I guess that, you know, that not so pleasant nasal discharge that needs to go down through the back of the throat there is there a little bit. But, you know, those are kind of parts of it. And I think our awareness of these types of things is so important because, and again, now when we're talking about, you know, infections and bacteria and viruses and kind of all of those things, and I'm a huge fan of empowering people on what they can do. So we can get caught up in the fear of, you know, what if I catch, what if I do, and all of those things. And those fears are very real for a lot of people. I always find that when I focus on what I can control and how I can optimize my health and well-being, then those sort of health-related anxieties can often drop off. So, you know, certainly being aware of the idea of my nose as a two-way filter, and utilizing that and using that as a tool, and I'm particularly aware of it if I'm out, you know, shopping or anything like that, to really, you know, make sure I'm not talking to people. People might see me smiling a little bit at them rather than engaging, and it's just reminding myself to use my nose as that two-way filter. So could you maybe elaborate a little bit and give us a little bit of an explanation of that one?
You've explained it very well, but a lot of the time, what we hear about breathing, what I grew up hearing, and I think from chatting to you originally, Joanne, it's the same. You know, we're told breathe into your nose and out your mouth, and into your nose, out your mouth. What happens, particularly if you start exercising, is that you, all right, something just popped up, a pop-up came up and blocked off the screen. What happens is that when you breathe into your nose and it's not enough, so you breathe into your nose and then partially into your mouth, so you go, and then out your mouth, and out your mouth. And after only a few numbers of breaths, you're breathing. And while you're not holding or blocking your nose, most of the air, 98% probably, is going through your mouth rather than through your nose. What happens then is we have no regulation on our volume, and we also have no filtration. So our nose is a really powerful filter. So when we breathe into our nose, we breathe in, and what happens, I have a lovely little picture here now, so I'll actually show you that there. And this is a picture of your nose.
We're getting very fancy here, Owen. We've screen shares and little devices and all sorts going on.
We just have to find where I'm going with this. Okay, so that's your mouth. Okay, that's your teeth and your tongue. Then your tongue is really important as well in your health. And then here is your nostril, and I have to actually do this with this hand. So up here is the bit that we can get our finger in here. So our breath comes in here, and then it passes through these areas here. Okay, or through this area or that area. That's a tube to your sinuses, and then it passes down here and then comes down. So what happens in here, the air spins as it goes through this area here, and it's your filter. Okay, so when you breathe in, you trap stuff here in your filter. So your nose needs to be moist. So if your nose is dry, you're dehydrated, you need to drink some water. Ideally a little bit of salt in it. So here is where you're meant to stop, you're meant to have it. So you go from 6 degrees, cold early morning or late at night at the moment. It's 32 degrees here at the back of your nose. So your nose warms as well as filters your air, and then 37 when it gets here. Whereas through your mouth, it's 6 degrees here, 10 degrees here, and 12 degrees. So there's a huge difference in it, and your body doesn't like that, and it just sort of can send it into a little bit of spasm, though we get used to it. So we're warming here, we're also filtering. So when we breathe out, when we breathe back out, we push that material back out our nose. So we go from, whoops, it's hard to actually do it in reverse. So you breathe out and you push the material here out through your nose. So you're breathing in and then you're breathing it back out. So even if you do breathe it in, you actually have a barrier here and you are actually keeping whatever it is, all these particles. So it breathes out three quarters of what you brought in. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, but this is just a space filter. So it's air just spinning through a narrow confine, and then you're breathing back out. So in relation to hay fever and allergies and pollen and whatnot, when you breathe in and you breathe in too much through your mouth, you bypass your filter and it goes down and stays in your lungs. It can stay there for 2 to 4 months. So you end up having a prolonged period of after having a single exposure. Well, typically it's not a single exposure. We're going around with our mouth open the whole time, and we just have an overload of tiny little particles that need to come out, and we end up having, streaming eyes, blocked nose, runny nose. So where we use our filter, reducing that by 3/4, our body can handle 8 or 10 times the load and manage. So managing is an awful lot better than not managing. Not managing is where you've got these overload of symptoms, whether it's here, or your eyes, or even in your sinuses and headaches that can go with it. So if you're filtering out 3/4, your body gets a chance to recover. So your lungs get a chance to recover, so you don't have as much inflammation, and you start to deal and process with it. So you breathe in, it warms, filters and moistens. You breathe out, it cleans and traps some of the moisture. So you actually, when you exhale through your mouth, you lose a lot of moisture. So when you exhale through your nose, you don't, so that makes a big difference there.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that I had a good explanation at the beginning there. It means I was listening last year on. So and I mean, as I said at the beginning, it has absolutely been, very significant changes for people that I've been in contact with and people that I've shared. And one of the other areas I would love to chat to you about, Owen, is sleep. Okay. And snoring, and I guess sleep apnea, and all of that area. I think you shared a piece with me once around the amount of divorces that cite snoring as one of the issues. And I guess now when people are in close proximity with their partners, all the time, some of those issues that maybe have been there at the back are now actually coming to the front as well. And sleep apnea, I know we've one of our viewers watching in there has asked a question around sleep apnea. So can you share some of your thoughts around that, or how we can work on improving that?
Well, yeah, I'll just talk about sleep in general first, Joanne. So sleep is a huge part of our life. We were knocked out for 4, 6, 8. Some people need 10 hours sleep to recover, but it's a huge part of our recovery. Where we breathe through our mouth, we can't have deep sleep, really proper sleep. So our sleep is sort of instead of being out of 1 to 10, our sleep is out of 1 to 5 or 1 to 6. So somebody who breathes through their mouth, and sleep apnea, people with sleep apnea tend to, but somebody who sleeps through their mouth, when they get a great night's sleep, they've had a 5 out of 10 night's sleep. With sleep apnea, it might even be a 4 out of 10 sleep. So a great night's sleep for them, they're still shattered from it. So tiredness is a huge function of sleep apnea, just because you don't get a restful sleep. But tiredness is a general problem in society, and where you are breathing more because of general global anxiety, so global in society, global in communities, global in families, everything is a little bit more agitated and stressed, or it can be, depending on where you live in and what your circumstances are in your family. Yeah. And what happens there is our breathing rate increases, and that has a direct correlation with disimproving your sleep. So where you're breathing more during the day because you're worried or upset or nervous or afraid, you breathe more during the day, you're going to breathe more at night, and you go from having a little gentle, cuddly teddy bear type little snore to a bit of a louder, more annoying, I want to give somebody a thump type snore.
Yeah.
And that carries through the following morning, because the person who's been snoring has had a night's sleep. The person who has been listening to the snoring has not, and gets up in the morning all happy as Larry, and the person who has been suffering is not so happy. And over a short period of time, that can actually make a big difference, so, but we can reverse it. So where we focus on our breathing during the day, we can actually breathe more quietly and gently at night, so that makes a massive difference. So with sleep apnea is sort of like, it depends whether it's what type of sleep apnea I have, obstructive sleep apnea or the central sleep apnea. But with sleep apnea is sort of like a deeper, bigger breathing problem than snoring. It's where you've got a collapse of the airways, usually here at the back of the throat. You can do things there with your position of your tongue during the day. So your tongue is designed to be at the roof of your mouth where you say nah. So up here, top of the back of the teeth, where you say nah, and it's meant to be curved up like that into up to the soft palate. Okay, I find it hard to make shapes backwards with my hand. But it's meant to be at the top of the back of your mouth, and what that does is it pulls your teeth, your jaw forward, and it pulls your jaw up. So your tongue is joined on back here, and it's a single end, and it's meant to finish back up here, and it's designed to pull your jaw forward and up. And what that does is it takes your tongue out of the, if I turn sideways here, takes your tongue out of the area of conflict here. I can show you actually on that little model that I have there. So on the model, so that's the back of your tongue here, and there are flabby bits shown here, and those flabby bits are what causes a snore. And what happens there is your jaw, when it pushes back, again from the wrong side, your jaw, when it pushes back here, is traps or blocks this area here at the back, your windpipe, so you stop breathing, and actually where you build up sufficient CO2, your muscle stops being collapsed and it opens up again, and you start breathing again with a gasp. So when you pull your jaw forward and up, right, so you're bringing it forward and up with your tongue here, so with your tongue here, bringing it forward, you're actually improving this area here at the back of your throat and the back of your mouth. And that makes a huge difference. So what you're trying to do with snoring or sleep apnea, that's a big area to work on, is back here. So you do that with your breathing and with your tongue. So your tongue, again, pulls your jaw forward and out, right? So it's out of your airway back here, and that's what your tongue does. And then with your breathing, you're trying to breathe gentler. So if I have a narrow tube and I'm pushing a huge amount of air through it, or if I'm pushing a tiny amount of air through that tube, and there's sort of wobbly bits at the back of your throat, this is where you've got a big amount of air going, and they all vibrate and make a lot of noise. Whereas if I'm just going to actually take a tiny little bit of air through, it doesn't make any noise at all. And so what we're trying to do is trying to go from big volume breathing and over time diminish it. So you can go sleep apnea, snoring, you might be 10 to 15 liters per minute at rest, which is also when you're sleeping, and you can slowly start to reduce that down. And we can go sub 5 liters, and at that stage you would be at rest 5 liters per minute. And so that's of air. This is a 2-liter bottle, but if you're trying to breathe, instead of breathing 6 or 8 of these every minute, you're trying to reduce it down to breathing 1 or 2 or 3 of those, and it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I think the key thing that's coming up for me there again, Owen, just as I'm listening, is when it talks to, in terms of even sleep, it's we're wanting to improve not even the quantity of sleep, the quality of sleep, and indeed our breath as well. It's decreasing the quantity of breath and improving the quality of that breath. So it's kind of quality over quantity in all of these in these areas. And I know from the the sleep apnea perspective, that absolutely the tongue to the tip of the roof of the mouth and kind of just there behind the teeth has been absolutely life-changing for one client of mine in particular. It has really made a huge difference. And they just started with an awareness of it, noticing it when they were in the car, things like that, and really consciously reminding themselves throughout the day to keep the tongue there to the roof of the mouth, because that encourages the nasal breathing and everything then as well. So it was so natural for them, and has really made a huge difference. And I think that leads us on then to the mouth taping, and I know that's something that you also talk about with some of your clients, and I've mentioned it. I know there's a couple of viewers watching in who are interested in that side of it, although the particular person that I'm talking about didn't feel comfortable with mouth taping and were able to change everything. Or well, not everything. I mean, there may be more work that could be done, but it certainly made a significant difference by just keeping the tongue to the roof of the mouth. But for those who may be interested in that concept, can you talk to us a little bit about that one?
Okay, yeah. So I can. So this is tape that I would recommend using. So it's a 25 mil wide. You can also get a 50 mil wide, or that's 1 inch or 2 inches wide. And it's from 3M micropore tape. It's the gentlest tape when you have to take it back off, which you eventually will have to take it back off. So you don't use it if you're feeling nauseous, or if you've been drinking, or if you're likely to have a stomach, or you have a stomach issue where you may have to get up and evacuate your stomach. So, into the toilet or whatever, so you're going to get sick at night. So I've torn off a strip there. Okay, so that's the full roll. I tore off a 6-inch long strip. I folded over one side here, so I've just folded over the thumbnail size portion. I'm going to do the same on the other side. So I'm just folding over a thumbnail portion. I'm putting it on the back of my hand. Okay, that's to take a little bit of the sticky off it. And you can do this during the day. This is a great exercise. So a bit like you're saying, where's your tongue during the day while you're in the car? You can actually tape your mouth while you're driving, or while you're at the computer, or while you're on while you're watching TV. And you can tape your mouth like that, or you can tape your mouth like this.
And I guess that might be something that lots of people are saying at this stage for partners and family members. Wouldn't it be great if we could just tape their mouths for the next few days? But I guess, it's funny because as I'm watching you there, that concept of having our mouths covered, up until a few weeks ago would have been absolutely just alien to people. And yet now more and more we're seeing people using face masks and different things in normal areas. So, and I mean, I know different people have different opinions on terms of the effectiveness of that, but, and maybe it's just that I'm now more comfortable with the idea of mouth taping and things like that, that it hasn't, it didn't seem so unusual to me. But that, and talk to us about the benefits of that, Owen. What linking that into what we've said, how can mouth taping help? Why would we go to what could perhaps appear quite extreme measures, really, for some people?
Okay, so there's other tape here. Okay, so this is called Myo tape. Okay, and that's actually great stuff. So it actually has the same effect as the tape over the mouth. So a lot of people feel nervous about having tape over the mouth, and they think, hang on, am I going to survive the night sleeping? So typically what happens is your tape doesn't stay on for more than 10 or 20 minutes the first night. That's fine. You just try it again the second night. And usually after about a week, your body just goes, oh yeah, it's just tape, and you fall asleep. What happens is, this is a great way of improving your sleep from that 5 out of 10 up towards 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 out of 10. It is life-changing to change your breathing. So if you're dealing with stuff all your life, and it is generally, if it's in any of the areas around affected by stress or anxiety, or any of these other issues that we have had, say the snoring, the allergies and whatnot, changing your breathing is monster. It really is. It's such a huge thing to do. The taping, so what your goal is to have the tape on in the morning. This myo tape looks like this instead. So you'll notice that's an elasticated tape and you're placing it around your mouth. But what it does is it actually it forces your lips together because it's elastic, and it keeps your mouth closed without having that restriction or barrier over your mouth. So you would be able to open your mouth. But that quality of sleep is a massive thing. So the quality, but also the duration and the lack of interruption. So people who breathe through their nose don't get up to go to the toilet. So that's something that I did every night of my life. Then I changed my breathing, and all of a sudden it felt like my bladder started working properly, as well as lots of other things. But what happens there is your bladder is surrounded by smooth muscle, and when you breathe heavily at night, it gets a squeeze, and that squeeze then sends us the signal that we need to go to the toilet. So if we don't have to get up and go to the toilet in the middle of the night for a very small volume, we end up having better quality sleep because we're not having the interruption of having this issue come along as well. So plenty of people have a breathing issue rather than a prostate issue, for men particularly, and they can greatly enhance the number or reduce the number of times that they have to get up to go to the toilet, and that improves quality of sleep. So even just in terms, our sleep goes in cycles, as we know, and where we breathe calmly and gently and at a lower level, we tend to sleep through the wakings that we would otherwise have got a disruption into our sleep. You know, so
and I guess that is
slightly different. Sorry, Joanne. There.
Sorry.
You asked me something slightly different, but I went a little bit off.
No, absolutely no, that's fine. I think that's absolutely you've touched on some of the key issues there. Is that one thing in the body? The body is never in isolation. All of these parts are interconnected. So when we improve breathing, we improve sleep. When we improve sleep, we improve the quality of restoration and healing that happens within the body whilst we're sleeping. That has that knock on mentally, physically, emotionally. There's just, and yet we're so conditioned, I guess, to treat things in isolation. And yet, the human body can, in my experience or my belief system, is that, we don't treat, there's no isolation when it comes to the human body because each part is interconnected and kind of works through. With one of our viewers watching in there, Owen, and our PT guy, and he has recently discovered, I guess, nasal breathing and its benefits. And he has just mentioned in his comments there that one of the biggest changes, because it's quite new to him, it was awkward and difficult to begin with and all of that. But he's mentioned that actually one of the biggest changes he's found is in his heart rate, and it's staying within zone 2. So there may be a few other kind of athletes, high performance sports people listening in. Can you give a little bit of thoughts there in terms of how it's benefited you?
I watched Connor's videos actually, because after chatting to you, Joanne, I watched his video there of his first run. So well done, Connor, on taking up the challenge of change your breathing. Yes, you should find that your exercise is far easier. So what happens there when your heart rate, when you go down to zone 2, you're running aerobically, so you should feel like you're able to just keep on running. So the ideal, unfortunately, the way we teach people to exercise is go thrash yourself, be exhausted and hurt, and then you're done. And the whole no pain, no gain philosophy is really popular. So people end up hurting themselves, injuring themselves, and they're no longer then able to exercise. Your breathing is a huge component in that, where you're staying with your breathing and you're breathing in and out through your nose. You're staying aerobic and you're not getting tired. Your muscles don't get as tired. The tired muscles get injured. Okay, so anaerobic, lactic acid, seized up muscles, your body goes, well, you're not doing that anymore to me, and it can cause you to sort of get injured, and then you end up with an injury that you may take a longer period to get out. But in general, in terms of people who are not exercising at all, if I start with those, Joanne, people find exercise too difficult. And why do they find it too difficult? The exact opposite to what Connor's point there is there. What they do is they go in and they start, like I showed the example before, into the nose, out to the mouth. About 3 breaths later, they're going, and so that's how their breathing is while they're walking or doing early stage jogging. And what happens there is you get a restriction on your arteries. Your arteries actually squeeze, that drives up your blood pressure, and to pump your blood around your body takes harder and harder work. So your heart has to work harder. So your heart rate is going up disproportionate to your exercise. You're exercising, walking or slow jogging, and your heart is thumping like you're running a 100-meter sprint final. And people go, oh my God, that really feels uncomfortable. And they actually stop exercising because of their breathing. So people who find that exercise isn't for me, and we all know people who sort of would say, hang on, exercise is not for me. I can't do that. And what it is, it's related to their breathing, impairs their heart. Their heart feels like they're going to die, so they stop exercising. And that's true as you go further up the ladder then. So just the sensitivity to that, and the willing to push through the pain barrier as we get higher and higher up the level of athleticism or fitness, we just get used to that. Our heart grows in size to actually cope with it. But what happens is we end up exercising at a higher heart rate than we need. So we end up exercising, let's say, at 180 beats per minute, or maybe a bit higher. And we say, oh yeah, my heart is tougher. But it's just been practiced to be tougher. Whereas we need to be gentler with ourselves. So where we are gentle with our breathing, we end up being gentle then with our heart. And so at the end of a session, you feel, yeah, you know, I could do that again. And that's for when you're trained on no pain, no gain, that doesn't feel like you're exercising at all. So people then say, well, I need to really push it because I want to feel that pain sensation. But it's far more powerful to be exercising without any of that pain, with just great ease. And that ease then transfers to other areas of your life, because you're not stressing yourself by running from, you know, a pack of lions every time you go out for exercising. You know, so that makes a big difference. So you have just greater ease, and running and walking and exercising like that brings ease to your anxiety when you're in your room and you feel, hang on, I can't go anywhere. When you start to worry about all these horrible news stories that we are inundated with morning, noon, and night, and it also has a great impact then on your sleep. So where you breathe correctly when you exercise, that's a key driver for changing your breathing. So the big thing there is mouth closed, no mouth breathing. You know, so that actually is something, Connor, that you'd find very helpful. So where you feel I need to open my mouth, slow down your pace. So it might be another half a minute at your level per minute per kilometer there, Connor, so that you're comfortable breathing to your nose. When you come to hills, slow down rather than speed up, or just slow down a little bit more than you would normally. But it's key to actually just maintain it. If you come to a hill and you say, God, I need to gas my way up this hill, just stop and walk, or stop, rest and recover, and then continue to run at a slower pace. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, I think I remember, and I might summarize this slightly incorrectly, but you can correct me on it, Owen, if I've gotten it wrong. But one of the lines I remember hearing from you before was, you know, if we can exercise, if we can build our fitness, or words to this effect, if we can build our fitness at the pace of our breath, rather than trying to get our breath to move to the pace of our body, then it has a much greater impact overall. And that kind of concept resonated with me very much, so that, you know, this idea of trying to push past breathlessness and all of those things is actually so counterproductive long term, in terms of our overall health again. And I love the idea, because so often we hear people using exercise as a means to manage anxiety, and I often hear people saying, you know, oh, I need exercise to manage my anxiety. And I kind of try and rephrase that for them, because I think, you know, we are humans who need movement, and therefore without that we will develop, you know, certain types of anxiety. Obviously it's not just as black and white as that. But when we see ourselves as a problem that needs to be fixed, rather than a human that needs certain things to be optimally well, then, you know, we approach it in particularly different ways. So, and at the moment, I know a lot of sports people perhaps will be struggling with not being able to get to the gym, and you know, maybe restrictions on the distances they can travel, and lots of different things like that, and means of exercise. So I love the idea of, you know, kind of saying then, when we become calmer in our physical activity, then that ripples into other areas of our lives as well. So I think that's a really important point, perhaps, for us to finish on. Have you any other important points that you might like to share there, Owen, or any thoughts?
Yeah, with exercise, initially your nose is going to run and you're going to think, hang on, there's something not right. That's actually that's just a remnant or a legacy of your old way of breathing. So for the first 2 or 3 weeks, your nose will run, and that's fine. And then after a while, your body just goes, I don't need to produce all this mucus anymore. We're living in a cleaner environment. Everything is suddenly naturally filtered, and your body just goes back into balance and your nose stops running and you don't need to have that congestion here or the anxiety there. So it's just to be far kinder and gentler to ourselves, Joanne, so I think the holistic way of approaching it is really important, so.
Well, that's one of my phrases, that I use regularly. Can we just be more gentle with ourselves, and kind of, drop into that gentleness? So gentle sleep, gentle breathing, gentle exercise, and all of these things that can then just bring an ease to our world, I guess. And absolutely as much now, perhaps more so than ever. And maybe, for some of us, we have the time to explore some of these things and to look at different ways of doing things. So, Owen, thank you so much for your time today and for joining me. It's great to chat as always, and a few more little pointers for me to remember there. So thanks a million for those. To our viewers, thank you for watching in. And please share the video with anybody else that may be interested in hearing some of what Owen has to share. For anyone that needs to contact Owen with more specific details, it's Owen Burns and it's breathingcoach.ie. You can contact Owen through there. And I'll be back on Thursday. Get my days right here. I'll be back on Thursday with, I think we're going to go pelvic floor for pregnancy on Thursday. I think that's one of the really interesting things when you were talking about kind of the jaw and the shape and all of those, how much that has changed over our, as part of our evolution, because our jaw shape now is completely different. And a lot of that's down to the foods that we eat and breastfeeding and kind of all of that area. So that whole field interests me.
Your jaw shape is fundamentally affected by how you breathe. If you're a mouth breather, your jaw shape changes. Elongates like this, because and your this part of your face doesn't actually it isn't actually pushed out by your tongue. So that's where this correction of your breathing, putting your tongue there, we're meant to actually be like that the whole time. But it has a fundamental, everything from your face from here down is affected by your breathing. If your mouth is open when you're young, you end up with a longer, less balanced face. So it makes a huge difference.
And that's a whole chat for another day, because that area fascinates me, even in terms of orthodontics and all of those kind of areas, and how that can all be massively impacted by our breathing and indeed how we breathe. So Owen, thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your day in the sunshine in the sunny southwest there. And thank you to our viewers for watching in. Thanks to Destination Uri for hosting, and I look forward to connecting with you next week. Thanks a million.
All right.